Hello there, and welcome to a game design playthrough of the fantastic game Portal. This is the Rambling Louse, and I'm going to be playing through the entire game and talking about various aspects that I assume went into the design and development of the game, and just sort of analyzing it a bit because it is an incredible game and it is absolutely worth analyzing, and we can learn a lot from what the developers put into this game. Now, if you have not yet played Portal, go play it now. You have no excuses. Just go now. It's cheap. It's not that long. Just go play it. If you have played the game and you have not yet played the developer commentary, go play that now as well. It is included in the purchase. It is right there. You can see in the menu. Go play through that and then come back here. Great, you've done those things? Awesome. We're going to start up a new game. Now, if you're wondering why I picked Portal, then you probably haven't played it as many times as I have. The game just has such incredibly solid design, and they do such a good job in so many areas of just game design and all the things that go into making a really great game. And I'm going to be talking about those here, and that's why I picked Portal, because I figured it would be a good place to start because it's just so good. Anyway, so they start the game off, they give you the absolute basic controls. They don't even give you instructions for the controls. They don't say, press this to move forward and then wait until you move forward or anything. They just give you the keys. This is forward, this is backwards. And then you press them to figure it out, oh, okay, okay, I am moving backwards. And same with jump. They give you a little space here so that if you want to jump onto the toilet or jump over here, you can sort of mess around with your jumping. But otherwise, you're pretty stuck here. And GLaDOS does her usual talk and everything. So you basically have a minute here to just play around with the basic controls and get those out of the way. Now, this section of the game, this opening test chamber, is incredibly important, sort of just cementing the fundamentals of portals. I mean, the whole idea of placing portals, that it makes the crux of this game's puzzle solving, is just, I mean, it's mind-bending, just inherently. And being able to convey this to the player in a very, an effective manner without confusing them too much, without making them feel like they've gotten stuck somewhere, just sort of conveying it very naturally so they in a sort of effective way learn how the portals work, what you can do with them, how they can use them to solve puzzles and so on. And this section right here is your absolute first exposure to portals. So it was absolutely important that the developers knew this, get this section right. And in the developer commentary, they state that they went through a number of different iterations for this part, and they tried a bunch of things. They playtested them very heavily to see how players would react, and eventually ended up with this design that they have here. So, first thing to notice, everything's kind of tinted bluey, like gray, but sort of bluey. Portal is orange. Orange and blue complementary colors. They contrast very well. The portal that is directly in front of you, you can't help but see it from this room, stands out inherently. It contrasts with everything else. The placement of the very first portal that you ever see is also super important. They made sure that the portal is placed in a way so that you have to see yourself as you walk through it. And again, this is super important. So you see the portal, you'll naturally walk through it, and you'll see yourself in it. You can't help it. And this is cementing the idea that you are walking, that these portals connect two areas, and you can see the entry portal from somewhere else. And if you look to your right, you can see the exit portal, or what is the exit portal at the moment, over there. And having the timer on both of those helps sort of cement that those are equals, that one goes into the other. So you'll naturally be drawn to this. You'll walk forward, you'll hear the little sound as you pass through the portal, and then you're left sort of looking here. You can look back where you came from, and you can see the room that you were in, and as a portal through here, and most players will probably go back and forth and kind of just be totally messed up in the head. But then the developers set up this sort of structure around the room. They made sure that when you pop out of the portal, you have to walk around the room that you're in, all the way around. The room is made of glass so that you can see it from the outside. So as you come out of the portal and you start advancing, you walk around the entire glass chamber, and you look inside of it and you say, that is the room that I was in. It's very distinct. The bed is, I mean, a lot of those items don't appear anywhere else in the game. And it's a very distinct room. On top of that, you have the radio playing the music, which sort of provides again, this is in the developer commentary, provides a sort of center, like a point that you can sort of fix on, and you can hear the difference from one side of the portal to the other, and as you pass around it, and you can sort of just really cement in the idea that you were a moment ago right there inside that room, and now you just magically, through this weird portal, walked out. And then as you come around here, you can see that there is nothing on the other side of that portal. It's not, they could have put it like in the wall or something, but they didn't, because they wanted to make sure it's not a tunnel or something you're going through. It is some mystical, science-y connection between those two places that you can pass through. And I just wanted to make that clear. So then you continue on to a less, not quite as mind-bending, but arguably just as important to the puzzle-solving section of this game. You're given the key prompt to pick up an object, and you're given a cube to pick up. And you are basically taught here the interaction between the button and the cube, and the whole pressing thing, which obviously plays quite an important role in dealing with the puzzles later on in the game. Now, the button is set up so that if you stand on it, it activates in exactly the same way it activates if you put a cube on it. I mean, this is cool because you can use it to solve some puzzles by standing and then placing a portal in there, which you can't do yet, of course. But also, just making the fact that standing on the button activates it is really useful for learning how the button works. I mean, it's not a terribly complex concept, but it still has to be taught to the players. And the developers Portal decided to go with teaching the player like through the game design instead of trying to explicitly give them text that says you should do this and do that and follow this instruction, then you've done this. And I'll explain later why that is so important, that decision on how to teach the player. But they decided to go with that, and I think that's obviously the right decision. But anyways, with the button and standing on it, players they'll see this, I mean, this huge red button. You can't help but notice it. It's on an elevated pedestal as well. And you walk towards it, you say, oh, what is this? And then just by virtue of walking towards it, you'll automatically activate it. And you can see that, oh, standing on this button, pressing it down, and it lights up when it presses down, all cues. There's a sound effect as well, so if you're not facing the correct direction, you still know that something's happening, even if it's not immediately obvious. But standing on the button opens the door. You can see the pathway, the check mark, it's all very sort of obviously done. And then the player just needs to make the relatively small mental leap that if they can put this, they can stand on the button, but they won't be able to make it through the door by doing that. But if they take the cube, which was very evidently dropped, put it on the button, the door will stay open. And as soon as the player successfully does that, you get GLaDOS talking. I mean, if you just stood on the button, you get the check mark and everything in the door opening, but you can't pass through. As soon as you put the cube on, you get GLaDOS talking, which it's a specific event, and it signifies to the player that they have done the correct thing and they should advance. And anyways, we continue on to the next chamber. Now, I personally like these elevator loading scenes better than the ones that they did in Portal 2. If you've played Portal 2, you know what I'm talking about. Portal 2 has explicit loading screens where it fades to black. There's like a little graphic that shows loading, and it sort of advances through a couple stages in the graphic, and then the graphic goes away and you're back in the game. I personally far prefer this style of loading. Even though the elevators are a very obvious loading screen, at least they don't tear the player out of the game like the ones in Portal 2 did. I just personally prefer trying to not break immersion whenever possible, and these, I mean, you have to sort of stop the player in some way so that you can unload the previous stuff and load up the next level. But I feel like these elevators do a much better job of keeping the immersion and the flow of the game intact than the loading screens in Portal 2 did. Although that's my personal opinion. But it makes sense in Portal 2. They had a much bigger sort of scale of production, and they had to load a lot more in. They had far more assets, they had far greater detailed models, and so it makes sense that they might have had to do that just for technical reasons, but it still sucks. I would have preferred the elevator scenes myself, or something similar. Alright, so now you're basically introduced to... There are two parts to this puzzle. One of them is the idea that a portal can move. It can be placed in different places, and that's just sort of done automatically for you. The second thing that you're introduced to is combining portal... You've learnt, up to this point, how to walk through a portal, and you've learnt how to place a cube on a button. But you haven't done both of them combined, and that's what you have to do right now. You're combining the two things that we just learned, as well as sort of learning that a portal can be placed in different places, and you can use this to your advantage. Now, you are dropped down here, which makes it obvious that everything you need to solve the puzzle is in this sort of quadrant here. And these rooms are obviously made of glass, so you can see into them, you can see exactly what's going on. There's nothing being hidden from you that you would just magically stumble upon. It's all very straightforward and clear. And you can clearly see, from where you're standing, you can clearly see where the portals come in. They could have put the portal on the right-hand wall, for example, here, but that would have made it a lot less visible. They made sure that where the portal appears is visible from where you stand here, as well as the exit, the cube, and the button, the three sort of critical components to this puzzle. They're all visible from down here, just in the middle, just to make sure that everything is crystal clear to you. Also, these, I mean, a lot of new players will probably take longer because they're sort of figuring stuff out as they go, but these portals cycle through in the correct direction. So, if you'll watch in a moment, it goes cube first, followed by the button. Oops. Followed by the door. And again, notice you get an audio cue with GLaDOS talking as soon as you correctly place the cube on the button and solve the puzzle correctly. Again, standing on the button does not trigger that audio cue. You have to put the cube down, which is the correct solution to the puzzle. I've always kind of wondered what those white lights are. That specular stuff there as the elevator moves. I couldn't figure out if they're an artifact from lighting on the outside or if they're there just to make the illusion of motion on the elevator more distinct, even though that doesn't actually happen in real life. I don't know. I've always sort of wondered that. Alright, your first introduction to the actual portal gun. So this speech right here, while being funny and all, is really here to stop you from moving forward at the moment and just make you stop and look out through this glass on the scene below. You can't advance right now. You have to wait for GLaDOS to finish. And that's an important game design decision. They wanted you to stop and sort of survey the scene, distinctly see the gun below, see that the gun is placing portals in a very similar way to how the portals were being swapped around in the previous level. If they're at all at right angles and it just moves around. And so you're saying you can sort of look down, figure it out. There are very distinct arrows pointing you towards the gun, saying that you kind of have to go there. And then once you've sort of observed that and the doors open, you proceed through the doors. Now, this level is set up so that you can't really help but do the right thing. From down here, it's obvious there's nowhere to go except through the portal that gets placed for you. You can't, there was nowhere to go out here. Same once you're up here. There's nowhere you can go except backwards or down to collect the portal gun. And again, it's on a raised pedestal. There are arrows pointing very obviously at it. So you walk towards it and you automatically pick up the gun. And you're provided with a prompt for how to place a portal. And GLaDOS gives you a little speech. And now again, there isn't really anywhere you can go. You can, I mean, like, fire a portal through there, but you can't get there. There's nothing you can really do here except for place a portal somewhere, doesn't matter where, and walk through it, and that will automatically solve the puzzle for you. Now you're up here and you can carry on. So the very early levels are set up so that you still have to do something, but you can't really help but do the correct thing to solve the puzzle, and that's a very important part of the game design. Also, it's worth noting that up until this level, you've been walking through the orange side and coming out the blue side, just kind of for consistency, and starting down there when the portal was placed automatically for you, you walked in the blue and came out the orange. They just want to sort of drill into the player at this point, now that they're a little bit comfortable with portals, that you can go in either side and come out either side, and it doesn't really matter. Both sides are equal. This next level helps to reinforce that same idea as well, that you can walk through either portal. And instead of just alternating the colors in the next level, they alternate whether the portal is placed by you or just automatically placed by them.
Please proceed to the chamber lock. Mind the gap.
So again, once you get to this point, you can clearly see the orange portal on the other side. Some players will figure out immediately that, okay, obviously can't jump that, I can place a portal here and walk through, and I've solved the puzzle. Some players won't figure that out immediately though, and they'll sort of look down. Notice that they didn't fill this with that weird sort of acidy water they often do. They made sure it won't kill you. Made sure it's kind of polite to the player. Some players might say, okay, is there somewhere I can go down there, like crawl underneath, or can I jump it? Okay, no, there's nowhere to go down here. And then they're stuck down here. And again, this brings you to a similar situation in the last level, where you can't move anywhere. The only thing you can do is shoot a portal and walk through it. And doing so automatically solves the puzzle for you. Now you're here and you can see the exit and you've done half of this test chamber. The next one is set up to do exactly the opposite. So I talked about making sure that it's clear that the portals are equal and you can walk through either one and come out the other one. And before they did that with colors, here they make sure that it's clear that you don't have to always walk through the portal that you placed. You can walk through the portal that they placed and come out the portal you placed, which is what you need to do in order to solve this puzzle. You place your portal over there, walk through, and you're out there. And again, as soon as you arrive here, you get an audio cue saying you've done the right thing, even though the exit's right there, so it's not that difficult. Also, notice the design decision to put stairs here. whereas in this level they did not provide stairs, which seems counterintuitive. You'd think the first one you'd provide stairs, the second one you wouldn't. But the reason is that they want to reinforce here that the player walks through the orange one and comes, the one that they placed, and comes out the blue one, the one that you placed. If they had not put stairs, some players would look here, they go, alright, they'd jump down, they'd be stuck down here, and the only way out would be to place a blue portal and come out an orange portal. And that reinforces the wrong thing, which is you can only go in blue and come out orange, or you can only go in the one that you placed and come out the one they placed, which is not what they're trying to do. So they put in stairs, so you can walk down here, see that there's no way up, and you'd walk back and go in the one they placed and out the one you placed. And they just want to make sure that element of the game is drilled in. I think the reason they drill that in is because they had a lot of problems with that while playtesting. They found that people playing the game often got it in their minds somehow that they could only walk through one and come out the other. Anyways, that is it for test chambers 1 through 3. I will start with test chamber 4 in the next video. See you next time.